And for a different perspective and a different opinion on this, we are joined by Dick Beamish. Dick is with ARTA, and ARTA stands for Adirondack Recreational Trail Advocates.
That's it.
You believe strongly that the better option would be to use this as a multi-use recreation trail.
We think so. It served a vital purpose in the Adirondacks when there was a railroad running regularly on it. It opened up Saranac Lake, for example. But that hasn't been the case for many decades. And we feel that the railroad, the tourist train between Lake Placid and Saranac has been given a fair trial. They've been at it for more than 15 years. I don't think they've proved themselves. There's no economic impact that anybody can see from that. It's not a tourist destination by any means. If people are vacationing here or visiting here, they have nothing else to do, they might take a ride on it. But people don't come here from some other place to ride the railroad, as they will come to use the rail trail. And that's to judge by rail trails in other parts of the country. They've been enormously successful conversions from old railroads, either abandoned or little used railroad lines, into the really popular trails for biking and running and walking and bird watching and pushing baby carriages and wheeling wheelchairs and you name it. Everybody can use them. It's the one recreational amenity that's been lacking in the Adirondacks. We have everything else here. We have thousands of miles of hiking trails, literally 2,000 miles of hiking trails, paddling trails all over the place, wonderful waterways for paddling. And we have everything, mountains to scale and climb, and you name it, we have it. Everything but a rail trail. That will be suitable for people of, any physical condition, all ages. I'm 81, I love rail trails, and I hope to be riding them for the next 20 years. Kids, a safe place for children to ride their bicycles. It's the one thing we lack in the Adirondacks.
Who do you think would primarily use this trail?
I think just about everybody will use this trail. I think families with young children will use it. I think elderly people will use it. I think athletes will use it for training, for running and cycling. I think it will appeal to and be used by practically everyone you can imagine.
You mentioned cycling. Do you think it would really be a draw for
cyclists? Big draw. I think there's a huge future for cycling in the Adirondacks. A lot of potential that hasn't yet been realized. But this rail trail connecting Lake Placid with Tupper Lake, 34 miles to the northern Adirondacks, will provide a focus for cycling and a catalyst for cycling, not only on the rail trail, but all over the place. We have wonderful back roads north of here for bicycling on. And I think once people start coming up here using the rail trail, and it will be a tourist destination as it is in many places, it's going to open up the whole northern Adirondacks to cycling, well beyond the rail trail. Right now, a recent poll taken by Roost in Lake Placid showed that obviously most people come here for outdoor recreation. That we know that. Something like 80% come to hike and 18% come to bike. And I think this is going to put bicycling right up near hiking and paddling as a major outdoor activity in the Adirondacks. And I'm basing this on our experience with bike trails, rail trails elsewhere. So I told you that my wife and I have a new hobby in the last few years, and that's going around the country riding, taking our bikes on the back of the car and riding on rail trails. And they're just enormously popular. They've taken off like a rocket in the last 30 years. There are now 22,000 miles of rail trails in the United States and counting. They're growing fast, and I hope we'll soon be adding this 34 miles to that figure.
I know the rail supporters argue that they think the trains are an economic boost to the area. You believe that this multi-use trail, especially for cyclists, would be an even bigger.
Well, I think that the train folks talking about this great economic boost, it has not proved to be any kind of boost between Lake Placid and Saranac Lake over the last 15 years. There's really very little economic impact to be seen anywhere from that. Whereas the rail trails that my wife and I go bicycle on are just draw people from all over the place. And we've seen studies on many of these rail trails. There's one in Virginia called the Virginia Creeper Trail. It happens to be 34 miles long, the same length as this one will be. They had 250,000 user days on it last year, double what it was a few years before that. And it's very similar to what we have in mind here. It's in a rural area, connecting little towns along the way. It's been a great benefit to a little town called Damascus, which was dying. The lumbering and the mining had ended, similar story. And they were just dying. And then this trail went in. And now there are something like a dozen B&Bs that are catering to bicyclists, and it's taken off. But I think when it comes to economic benefits, there's no question that rail trails can provide them. There's evidence. And there's no evidence whatsoever that extending a tourist train from Utica to Tupper Lake, 110 miles long, will provide any kind of economic benefit to anybody. Our pitch is that let's go ahead with this 34-mile trail connecting the Tri-Lakes area, see how well that does, see what its economic impact is, along with other impacts. It's not just economics, it's recreational enjoyment for a lot of people. It's a huge health benefit, a public health benefit, to get people out exercising regularly on an easy trail like this. But let's see how it goes, and then decide whether we want to extend the tourist train from Big Moose, just north of Old Forge, all the way up to Tupper Lake, whether that makes any sense. Because there's not a single tourist train in the country that we know of anywhere near that long. It's just not viable. People who take tourist trains like to go for short distances, an hour, maybe 2 hours, but my God, 6 hours? And then turn around and go back 6 hours? But I think now finally it's time to do something else with that corridor. We've given it, I think, a really good try. It hasn't panned out quite as well as we had hoped and as promised by the railroad people. And now it's time to do something that has been enormously successful all over the country, and the one thing that's lacking in the Adirondacks. And it will be a tourist destination, unlike the tourist train up here. I think it'll be a major tourist destination after a while, and it will put bicycling on the map. And bicyclers spend money. They're money-spending tourists. And they stay at places, at motels and hotels, and eat at restaurants, and they do all that stuff. And I think it will be a boon in every respect, and economically, recreationally, and certainly good for the health of the people up here.